Hello and welcome to the GOTY of the Year Awards. It's 2020, so of course I am a VTuber now. What do you mean a static image of a poorly cropped series of unrelated stock photos doesn't count as being a VTuber? We've had to make some budget cuts, okay? It's been a tough year. You know, what with the world being on fire, the looming threat of World War III, and I swear there was something else. I'm sure whatever that thing was will get a mention in every year in review style video that you have watched, will watch, and ever will be watched about the year 2020. So let's just cut to the video games and try not to talk about that thing at all. Animal Crossing. The perfect game for when you're under a stay-at-home order in the middle of a global pandemic. Oops. But in all seriousness, planning the release of your cozy, relaxing island retreat management adventure to coincide perfectly with governments worldwide advising their citizens to stay indoors does seem a little bit too convenient to be a coincidence. And if Tom Nook isn't in some way involved in the outbreak, then I'll eat my pear. Originally, I had no intention of buying Animal Crossing New Horizons, but given the aforementioned stay-at-home order, I thought I might as well. And boy am I glad it happened. Purchasing the game, that is. I could take or leave the government-mandated lockdown. Back in spring, my girlfriend and I, both now working from home, found every opportunity we could to log in and take turns cultivating our own little corners of paradise. And whilst the 2 players 1 island thing wasn't perfect, it certainly enhanced the experience for us personally. Sharing the growth of our town, the relationships with our villagers, and of course, our crippling debts to a maniacal money-hungry landlord and his otherwise cute pot-bellied exterior. Is it the best or the most complete Animal Crossing experience? No, probably not. But by God, if it wasn't well timed. Really, 2020 was a year of surprises. And I am still talking about video games. After suddenly having a lot fewer things to spend my disposable income on, I found myself in ownership of a free copy of Horizon Zero Dawn after buying a new CPU. And wow, this game is beautiful. As long as you're not moving the camera too quickly, that is. From doing plenty of reading online, it's clear that your mileage may vary when it comes to performance. But in my experience, on the aforementioned upgraded CPU and by all accounts a good graphics card, this game ran like, and I don't swear very often on this channel, so you know how serious this is, utter poo. I ended up playing the majority of the game at 1080p, 80% render scale, and only medium graphics settings just to get a constant 60 FPS. And the game still chugged like hell almost every time I pulled a 180 too quickly. And that was even after 8 bug and performance upgrades from the developers. But the fact that I spent 49.5 hours playing the game and only really stopped bothering with the side content at around 40 hours, it's a testament to the game that's behind all of those technical woes. I really don't think that it necessarily does one thing particularly special, as it were, but the great graphics and art, minus what we've already talked about, the good story, and the generally satisfying combat and RPG progression all come together and make this game something that I felt deserved 2 paragraphs in my GOTY of the Year rambling. And the surprises keep coming, and they don't stop coming, because 2020 brought yet another game that I didn't know I'd be playing this year that was an absolute joy to experience. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. For those of you who aren't familiar, this was a remake of the 1999 and 2000 classics for the original PlayStation. An era and console that absolutely defined people around my age's gaming habits. And as far as remakes go, they successfully captured all of the charm of the originals, whilst adding new licks of paint and features that don't negatively impact that charm in any way. You basically can't ask for much better than that when it comes to remaking a classic game. In previous videos, I've already talked about how much this series has impacted my life outside of gaming, and just how awesome the gameplay genuinely makes me feel. So I'm not going to repeat all of that here again. But as much as I would love to just instead show you a gameplay montage with Goldfinger's Superman in the background, the one time I streamed myself playing this game, the VOD received 11 copyright claims against it. But wait a second, Superman wasn't one of those claims! Now before I proclaim what my actual number 1 GOTY of the year is, there are a couple of honourable mentions. Games that I played this year that are definitely worth a shout out, but they were held back, for me personally at least, in one way or another. Half-Life Alyx. An absolute testament to VR technology and the game-making talent that still exists at Valve. But for all the amount that I am downright awestruck by the quality of this game, I'm not sure I can say in good conscience that I actually enjoyed it. When I try to describe VR to people that haven't played VR, I say that the experience is more like laser tag than it's like playing a video game. You know it's fake, you never fear for your actual safety or anything like that. It's just more intense. Giant toxic spider aliens jumping at your face is all the more distressing when, for all intents and purposes, it's your actual face they're jumping at, not just a black rectangle a couple of feet in front of you. But hey, maybe I'm just a bit. On what is probably about as far the opposite end of the spectrum that we could go, Spiritfarer. I had my eye on this game after playing the demo about a year ago, and it really captured my heart. The elevator pitch for this game is that it's a cozy management game about death. The art, music, and general gameplay absolutely met and even exceeded my expectations for cozy management, and I still wholeheartedly recommend this game to anyone to whom that sounds appealing. But the real uniqueness of this game is its narrative, being that you are the boat woman in the afterlife, ferrying dead souls to the so-called Everdoor. The thing that held the game back for me is that I just didn't get that emotional response from sending most of the souls through the Everdoor as I expected. So despite its amazing art, music, relaxing gameplay, and very intriguing concept, the writing, for me at least personally, just didn't quite land. But a game where the writing did land, and it landed hard, was Rakuen, a mostly narrative game set around a hospital and a parallel fantastical world. You play as a young patient at the hospital, and spend most of the game accompanied by your mother, not usually for any particular reason, you're just hanging out together. I'm not going to spoil any more of the story beyond those basic details because the story is really what the game is all about, but I will tell you that I bawled my goddamn eyes out at the end, and I choked up several times along the way. In fact, the only reason that I'm not putting this game in contention for my absolute GOTY of the year is because, well, it didn't come out this year. One game that did come out this year, however, is Super Mario 3D All-Stars on the Switch. It's no secret that I absolutely love Super Mario Sunshine. Heck, it's literally the only Let's Play series that I've ever done, and it's my most recent playthrough on my Twitch channel. So when it was being officially released on Switch, it was naturally a day one purchase for me. Being one of my favourite games of all time, of course, puts it in contention for Game of the Year. But even I, practical superfan, have to concede that despite the increased aspect ratio and minor texture improvements, to consider this a 2020 game is a stretch. This is the 2002 version with tiny improvements. And I'm not exaggerating either when I say that. The game on Switch is literally an emulated ROM of the original 18-year-old GameCube release, not a remake, and it's not what could be reasonably considered a remaster either. In fact, my aforementioned Let's Play series from 5 years ago is played on an emulator that provides an objectively higher quality version of the game than the one that Nintendo released this year. So despite my love for Sunshine and the way I believe it still holds up as a solid game in 2020, I cannot in good faith consider this to be a 2020 release.
Good enough. Good enough.
Of course, it wouldn't be an award show without ads. And today, we're sponsored by me. We've got Casperr beanies to keep your head warm, limited time winter jumpers to keep your body warm, baseball caps to keep your eyes not warm from the sun, and actually pretty damn awesome tie-dye t-shirts if I do say so myself. And I can absolutely guarantee you it's way too late to order in time for Christmas. But hey, maybe it's something to spend your Christmas money on, or a gift for someone that you care about, just not all that much. Anyway, I think we were talking about video games. To those of you who have followed this show for the past 2 years, which is no one as this is the first year I've actually gotten around to making one of these videos, you'll know that my previous GOTY of the year was Celeste in 2018, and a very close tie between A Short Hike and Superland in 2019. Despite playing my fair share of AAA games, it seems as though I am consistently more impressed by indie titles, and this year is no exception. My personal number one GOTY of the year is Hades. I'm sure if you're already familiar with the game, or at the very least the hype surrounding it, then this won't surprise you all that much. Because the hype around the game's 1.0 release was pretty big, especially for an indie game, and it's indeed that hype that made me even aware of this game. And again, boy am I glad it happened. The hype, that is. and the game. For those of you who aren't familiar, Hades is a roguelike game from Supergiant Games. The thing with roguelikes, the genre that typically asks you to play the same, slightly randomized gameplay over and over again, is that the game has to do enough to make you want to play the same slightly randomized gameplay over and over again. Hades not only succeeds at this, but unlike a lot of roguelikes, it gives you a damn compelling narrative reason to do so as well. You play the game as a character called Zagreus, the immortal son of the god of the dead Hades himself, and you are constantly trying to escape from the underworld. Immediately, a more in-depth explanation for the repetition than a lot of roguelike games. But as you go, the story throws in curveballs about Zagreus' true lineage, told to you via a huge cast of fully voice-acted Greek gods and other legendary figures, many of whom have their own unique story arcs and all with their own personalities and detailed art and design. And by the way, Artemis is bae, don't at me. Fighting through the same 4 layers of the underworld rarely feels monotonous in its repetition due to the aforementioned gods who all have their own unique blessings that can also combine in different ways. There's 6 different weapons to choose from and 4 variations for each of those weapons. There's modifiers that you can apply to your runs to make it more challenging, perks you can assign or remove before each run, as well as the choice you have during the run of what reward you want to fight for in the following room. But even if you aren't interested in the engaging storyline, well-researched and lively characters, or the extensive variation in character builds, there's one thing that underpins everything that really enables Hades to stand proud at the top of my, and probably many others, GOTY of the Year lists. The actual gameplay is just so goddamn fun. It really makes you feel like a damn godson. Thank you all for staying home tonight. And remember, videos like this are just my opinion, and I'm not in any way here to make you feel bad about your opinions. You'll have your own favourite games this year, and maybe they'll overlap with mine, but maybe they'll be entirely different. Either way, I hope you had as much fun and enough places to escape to playing video games this year as I did. And yes, GOTY of the Year doesn't make sense. It is a play on several reoccurring memes. I don't want to explain it because that will kill the joke. If you enjoyed this video, then you can watch this video on why I believe that Tony Hawk's Pro Skater is the best Mirror's Edge game. You can support the channel by checking out my merch, follow me on Twitch where I stream often, and you can of course subscribe here on YouTube if you haven't already. Till next year, I hope everyone stays safe, has happy holidays, and I love you all.